Hello, my name is Kimberly Lozano, and I'm a senior at SHSU. My major is criminal justice, and I hope to graduate this August. The book I chose for our project was You Can't Say You Can't Play by Vivian Gus and Paley. The book is about a kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Paley, who would like all children to play fair and never exclude any child from play or even from having friends, therefore implementing a new rule to the classroom called You Can't Say You Can't Play. Miss Paley first introduces it to her kindergarten class to see what their thoughts would be if a new rule such as you can't say you can't play was to be brought into the classroom. The kindergarten students had mixed answers to Mrs. Paley's new rule. Some, those who were excluded, wanted the new rule to be brought into the classroom because they didn't like being excluded. But then those other more popular students did not like the rule. They said, why should they have to play with somebody who they don't like? Or why should they let somebody play a game that they came up with? They should get to choose who plays and who doesn't. They were more used to having somebody be a boss. Mrs. Paley decides to introduce the new rule to older students throughout first and fifth grade. Some of the older students liked the new rule, but only thought it would work if introduced to kindergarten children, only because older students are already set in their ways, while the younger students are easier to be taught something to carry along throughout the years. The older students um, already have habits, and it's harder to break habits than to just come up with new ways. Miss Paley decides to actually bring in the new rule to the classroom and realize it was easier for children to follow the new rule than to keep excluding others, only because they saw how it hurt other people's feelings. I found the book to be very interesting because it actually showed me how this actually really does occur often in classrooms. Like, I myself spoke to an old friend, and I asked him why we hardly ever spoke, and his answer was that I was more popular than he was, so he just kept to himself. I never noticed how I actually did have a group of friends that I always played with, and I just didn't really talk to other students, just the people who I wanted to speak to. I never noticed how some people might feel excluded. Um, I never, Miss Paley tells the students that if the rule is brought along, it could help the classroom be more equal and fair for everyone. She said, well, who would be sadder? A child who never gets a chance to play or a child who has to let others play? I believe that everyone should have an equal choice to play, and those who choose to be a grouch and sit out should not be able to ruin the time for everyone. You Can't Say You Can't Play also brought to my attention how used to the idea of bosses children actually are. Although You Can't Say You Can't Play doesn't say that there cannot be a boss, it just gives everyone equal opportunity to be a boss, so nobody really feels like they are less than anybody else. I like the way Miss Paley also told the students stories that they could connect with, because these stories showed a positive influence and showed the students how in the stories everybody was nice and everybody was happier. So if everybody played nice in the classroom, then everybody would just be happier altogether. The our classroom book states how pro-social behaviors are influenced by behaviors modeled by others. Therefore, the stories show the students an example to follow. I I would implement the if anything different, I would implement the new rule throughout all grades in elementary, just because it's better to break old habits than to let them continue to do this throughout life, because eventually one day those excluded will realize that they went throughout life always being excluded instead of trying to be included in anything. They'll just give up and realize that that's just their way, the way life is going to be for them, that they're never going to have a chance to be equal to everyone else. After reading the book, I now believe that each kindergarten teacher should introduce You Can't Say You Can't Play to their classrooms. That way, kids will learn to include everybody. I definitely would recommend the book to all teachers in elementary classrooms as well as parents. I believe that parents and teachers work together in disciplining children. Therefore, if parents also show their children these rules at home, it would be easier to go into a classroom setting and already treat others as equal, For instance, when you teach a kid that they need to share their toys, if you don't tell them that they need to share at home, they'll go into pre-K or kindergarten not sharing with anybody. But if you teach them at home that they should share, then it would be easier for them to go into a classroom with other students and share their things. The book actually does a really good job at introducing You Can't Say You Can't Play, and I think Mrs. Paley did a really great job in writing her book. I actually loved reading it.